I'm Shelby Birkenholz, the Senior Director of Customer Success at VGM Associates, and I'm really excited to have my friend Kyle Neese for our Industry Matters podcast today. He's the Senior Account Executive with ACU-Serve. Kyle, how are you?
We're doing it. I'm wonderful. I'm so glad to be here. Thanks, Shelby.
We're finally here. We're now almost a year into our partnership.
We're getting there. Seems like either 2 months, and then some days it seems like 5 years. So I don't know which one today is going to be, but we'll see how it plays out.
Hey, that just means we're in it to win it. I love it. But, the important thing is today we have this time to come together and, address some of the industry challenges, some of the hot topics that are out there that, everybody's talking about. We heard it at MedTrade. We see it on our discussion board. So it's a really good opportunity to address all of that. But when you hear hot topics, are we talking about AI today, Kyle? What are we talking about?
How do I turn my camera off? I thought we only had 15 minutes. I don't think we have enough time to talk about AI today.
We will not talk about AI today. We'll save that for another day, another time. But I want to hop right into it. So let's start off. Yeah. Honestly, let's hit it with the biggest thing right now. I feel the industry is facing significant challenges. I feel like, we get over one hill and then there's something hitting us and we're back to square one. We're 3 legs down the ladder. But staffing shortages, reimbursement cuts, compliance issues, the list goes on. So how do you think that providers should navigate these tremendous issues that they're facing on a day-to-day basis?
It changes over time, right? It's been a pretty crazy 5 years for the industry, starting all the way back with COVID and trying new things for the first time. People have been open for 30, 40, 50 years in some cases, and they've done something really well and they've continued to do that, but they've had to pivot. And I think at this time, you never want to rush. Don't put a Band-Aid on an issue that you've done really well before. Take the time to step back and really see the entire space, what's out there, and try and lean on somebody or a partner, like ACU-Serve in a situation like this, that's been there and done that. One of the things that, we really heavily rely on internally is our payer relations division. So I'm not a payers expert, but we do have those payers experts here that we see new industry changes every single year, right? Some of these are coming quarterly. Some, in the case of AA home care and some other, strategies, they're working directly with these payers to say, why are we making these changes? How do we understand these changes? And a lot of times you need somebody else to explain it for you. So, we lean on somebody like Neil on our team and other people in our payer relations and our consulting division to really help you navigate these changes. And you got to lean on somebody that you can trust.
No, absolutely. And I think that's a huge shout out to you guys. And I know every state association, every med trade, you always see Noel out there speaking and making sure that, he is helping customers, stay on top of this stuff too. And to know that he can definitely hold their hand too. So I know that's very appreciated, from an industry perspective. But, Kyle, I know ACU-Serve really prides themselves, you guys are big on the root cause analysis, right? You don't just want to help with the symptoms. You want to help with the disease within a business operation and leveraging some technology to do that. So how does this approach set you guys apart from others out there that are trying to do the same?
Yeah, so you got to continue to find out trends, right? And that's the best way. It's big data. We got to continue to fight with data. And, as we've grown throughout all the years, technology is not at the place it is today 33 years ago when ACU-Serve was started. So we've leveraged it from the start. Obviously, we've built on that technology through the entire time. And, with drill down capabilities and a lot of the trends that we have, we get to see where do we actually fix the issue. You said it, right? Root cause analysis. There's one thing of throwing bodies at a resource. The more humans you have working something, obviously, you're going to be able to get through a workload. But what are the trends in that workload? Did you just bill something and then eventually have to go rebill it? One of the things that we want to focus on is, okay, so what was the original problem? How do we work together as a true partner to educate, the front end of the business on where there was a gap or where we could potentially fix something or use your system to help do that too? In this industry, you pay a lot of money for software. You got to make sure you're maximizing your use and leveraging that technology to its full standpoint. So, one of the things, Shelby, that we do as well while we're on this topic is system optimization. Right when you start working with ACU-Serve, we're working in, 12 or 13 different billing systems right now. We're going to go in and look at all the different bells and whistles of your software. where we can make improvements and how we can find some systemic places to fix these issues for good rather than just putting Band-Aids on them. And I know I mentioned Band-Aids earlier, but that's a lot of what we see in this industry. We want to be the pioneers of true change and fixing that from a root cause analysis perspective.
No, that's awesome. And I think, that applies to so many areas of, a DME operation. But, like we talked about at the beginning with staffing shortages and all these other factors, I know it's super difficult, for anybody's business to step away and be like, we're going to spend time on this piece of the puzzle to make sure that, we are sustainable long-term. We just know it's really hard for folks to take the time and the energy to do some of those things. But honestly, it goes right into that next piece for us is, scalable infrastructure. We don't want people to be here for a short time. We want them to be here for a long time. So, as ACU-Serve continues to evolve to help customers do that and have the scalable infrastructure long-term, can you explain what that looks like?
Of course. Some of our bread and butter, I think we've seen a lot of industry changes, obviously, through the last 33 years, and there's been huge waves of acquisitions. But we're at this point now, which is really exciting in the industry, that some of these people are looking to acquire themselves. Other people are looking to grow. We're seeing so many new entrants, and you guys know more than anyone as leaders in the industry, right? From a VGM perspective, we're seeing new members, joining VGM, new DMEs popping up left and right. We've seen mom and pops grow, but we've also seen, super regionals that grow from this method. So I think acquisitions is a big one to point out, right off the bat. New states, new regulations, things that are constantly evolving in this space. You have to have some data insights, right? So I think a lot of this continues to go back to our proprietary software, AccuInsight, and seeing the trends that we're working on. If you're acquiring or you're looking to build a new brick and mortar in another state, that's new to you. You might be the best at sleep or continuous glucose monitors or another, type of disease state. But if you're going to a new state, there's new legislative, right? There's new regulations that may come into play with that. So rather than hiring a consultant or, taking all that time rather than growing the business, focus on a partner who's been there and done that, like AccuServe, that can help you continue to grow the business, not halt all operations, review everything that's going on, and now hold your business back from that growth phase. So I think that's something that, Shelby, you and I have talked about that before too. Don't let an operation stand still. Let that continue to move forward, but you can only do that if you have the right setup in place. So again, from our standpoint, we get to scale quickly. I mean, we're at a point right now where we're onboarding customers in 30 to 45 days. That's not a 6-month project or a 9-month project where, some big changes in an industry or for an, internal company are going to, hold them back from really what they want to do, which is scale. So one of the other things is increasing cash flow, right? So, we talk about monthly recurring revenue, and one of the most important parts of a business is that MRR. So how do you continue to grow that? Well, you need an increase in cash flow. So we joke, one of our old slogans was collecting more faster. That's still true to this day. But at the end of the day, we've now upgraded, or I guess now changed our philosophy that results matter. At the end of the day, results are going to be what drives the business. So if you have the infrastructure set up, you have a partner that's going to help you get there, that you can lean on for questions, for scalable growth, rather than hiring and training. You get the opportunity to expand into these new disease states or new product categories that allow you to have monthly recurring revenue, which again is going to increase and move up that cash flow.
As you brought up MRR, that kind of leads me into that. One of the biggest heartaches I know that, our team, our member success team here is out in the field is, they're doing all of this incredible work. And quite arguably, some of the most important work is taking care of patients. And to do all of that and not be able to collect all the cash for the work and for the things that their people are doing day in and day out to, keep those patients healthy and in their home, right? Out of the hospital is the ultimate goal. But with that, dive more into, and it sounds silly, but dive more into why that monthly recurring revenue is just so unbelievably critically important for the financial health of providers.
You're going to laugh, but I always say, do what you do best, outsource the rest. I mean, that's truly at the end of the day what we want to focus on. So patient care, right? Do what you do best. Let us handle the rest. And in a situation like this, you're putting up all of these products, that patient care, that inbound and intake order. You're going through all of these steps and not seeing a single penny. That's the toughest part of DME, and one of the things that we work with, that if you're not collecting this on the back end, you're holding back the opportunity to scale. So I think, again, looking at monthly recurring revenue, it's going to give you that opportunity to not wait a year for a rental to be completed or to get that larger payment over a quarterly or a yearly basis. You're now bringing this cash forward to allow you to get more equipment, go into a new product category, hire new respiratory therapists or new specialties internally. That's going to allow you to continue to grow. But MRR really is going to be able to help drive that and drive it quicker. Would be, one of the most things that we focus on.
No, and something that you had said, it just made me think, don't stop. You got to keep going. If you just halt everything you're doing and try to implement some different strategies, work with other partners, you still got to keep the business moving day in and day out. But it's just that great reminder for folks to not get paralyzed by perfection, because nobody is perfect. But I like how you said that about just focusing on, what you're excellent at. And, sometimes it takes the team of the amazing people that our DME providers hire to come together as a group, and let's identify what we know that we are killing it at day in and day out. And then let's really spend some intentional time behind what we know we can pour into and, further develop for long-term success. So I like that. That was good. And there was no laughing, so no worries about that. But that does bring up the next question, Kyle, is, we want people to have that scalability and that opportunity to grow and continue to serve this patient population that we know is going to just continue to grow drastically. The demand is going to increase and the supply is going to get that much more difficult. But, as that monthly recurring revenue grows, especially in terms of billing and claims volume, what challenges have you seen arise with DME companies, or what could they potentially expect to see on that growth journey?
Yeah, it's a great question, right? And some insurances these days are still only doing monthly orders. A lot of these are still quarterly, which helps, right? So instead of doing potentially 12 claims through that period, it might only be 4 in a perfect world, but it's still increasing that volume. So it's a beautiful thing, right? It's a good problem to have. Increasing your MRR is going to increase your claims. So how do you fight that? How do you combat that? It's going to be using technology. Leverage technology, whether you're working with a company like ACU-Serve or doing something internally. That's the best way to combat it. You don't want to just have to increase your MRR and those invoices going out and then have to double your staff along the way. So either working with a partner that already has technology ready, we have the framework then to see the trends, right? So how do we use AccuInsight to now enable the success and the scalability without now doubling staff, right? And that's one of the challenges people have historically seen. AccuServe has now leveraged technology to make that possible without drastically increasing your costs as well.
No, that's exactly right. And I know we said we weren't going to talk about AI, but the concept is the same, because if you think about it, we don't want people to get rid of their staff. We want them focusing on the things that are going to move the needle that much more. I know VGM, we look at that as well. We want to scale, we want to grow, and how can we leverage technology to get there and not be afraid of it? You know what I mean? So I know that was definitely an overarching theme at MedTrade, and you just can't be scared of AI. It's not going to come out of the computer and hurt you. I'm pretty sure that's confident. So
no promise on that. But one quick thing, Shelby, on that too is, we have always talked about, like, on the AR follow-up and collection side of the business. Mm-hmm. We don't want staff to, to be cut or to move, we want them to be moved in other areas. And we've always said, right, some of your best intake staff are the people who are working the back end of the business, because they're the ones who have been fixing, usual trends and issues their entire time. So we see a lot of success too. People start outsourcing for the first time. A great place to do that is with AR follow-up and collections. And then, those individuals who are experts on fixing the issue, they get to do this now on the front end, right? So back to root cause analysis, we're going to put, your playmakers where they're going to make the most plays for you guys in the front end.
Playmakers. That sounds like you've been watching a lot of March Madness.
It is that time of year.
It is madness. It is madness. My bracket is not broken yet. We're holding on for Drake.
Week 2. Look at you.
Humble plug, Drake all the way. But no, as we look at this our entire time together, and I mentioned at the beginning of this that we're coming up on that year of our partnership, which is extremely exciting. There's a lot of like-mindedness in the way our business is run, but from your personal perspective, personal and professional, I guess, share a little bit about the overarching philosophies that, guide both VGM and ACU-Serve in supporting DME providers. And not just the DME providers, we have a lot of partners that are other vendors out there in the space, but, talk more about on the provider scope of that.
Yeah, so I don't know if you remember those blue shirts we had at VGM Heartland last year that pigs do fly. Jim jokes about it. Jim Knight, our CEO, jokes about all the time that this was a long time coming. And I couldn't agree more. One of the things that we pride ourselves on here at ACU-Serve is having a consultative approach. And isn't that really the basis of VGM? Van's original mission, providing value to members and leading them in the right direction by either acquiring companies to do that internally at VGM or having these member, partners that you guys have to at least give the right solutions to your members and at least offer them in the right direction that they're going to go. So I think, Van and Jim at the end of the day have had the same philosophy, and it's also turned out to two successful businesses that if you put that client first and put them and lead them in the right direction and keep them on that right path, I think we're taking it to the next level here at ACU-Serve. Whether we're building it organically or acquiring it, we want to have this franchise model. We want you to focus on what you do best and let us outsource the rest, no matter what part of your business that is. And I think 10 years ago, we had a couple different verticals that we focused on. Where ACU-Serve's at today and where ACU-Serve's going to be at tomorrow is more and more solutions to help that pain that our DME partners are going through. And, we want to continue to be part of that solution. I think, again, our two cultures, they couldn't mesh any better other than us talking about basketball probably just as much as we're talking about, the DME world together, these last couple of weeks, Shelby. I think that's the epitome of really, how these organizations are ran and the future of where we're going together. So we're super excited. It's been a great first year, and we're excited for what's to come.
Well, we are too. And, the people hear consultative approach, but it's really because we both want to provide solutions. Our customers in any aspect come to us and they want to they're expecting an answer. If it's something that we know right off the bat and can help them with, amazing. But, we just have all these amazing people here. I know you guys do as well. So I think the big thing is just customers, DME providers need to be asking the questions. You don't know what you don't know, and it's never going to be a silly question because it's honestly one person's going to ask it and 20 more are going to ask it the next day. So, I think that's a really good theme there is, we want them to focus on continuing being excellent at what they know they're excellent at. Leverage some amazing team members within their DME to work on some of those things that maybe they know they're not. And that is a great opportunity to introduce an outsourced partner for some of those other things. So I appreciate you teeing up some of those other areas that, ACU-Serve does have those solutions. So appreciate that. But at the end of the day, how can DME providers get in touch with you guys to have that further support? What does that experience look like?
So one of the easiest ways, go to ACUServecorp.com, and we have a book a meeting link. We have a lot of great, client testimonials, case studies, some great, knowledge base already built into our website. But we'd love to have a conversation, right? We got a whole sales team here and some great operators that would love to hop on the phone and kind of talk about where your business is at today, what kind of some of those ultimate goals that you have are going to be, and put you in the right place to either learn more and have those conversations with us. And so again, that's one place to do it. And you can also find us at Heartland. So we're gonna have some different speaking engagements. We're super excited to be another exhibitor at the Heartland Conference this year. And I think there's going to be obviously a great slate of events and speakers that'll be going out throughout the whole week. But we can't wait to be a part of that and continue providing value to the members of VGM.
Kyle, you mentioned Heartland right around the corner.
Gotta sign up.
Plug. I'll say humble plug for anybody that's listening to this, and I hope there's many, but that the early bird rates go through April 18th, but that show in June will be here before you know it. So appreciate you guys obviously exhibiting again, looking forward to the speaking engagements, the sponsorships. Definitely Heartland can't come together the way it does every year without support from, our vendor partners, and then our great attendees, our membership that comes all the way out to Iowa. Hopefully it's not a balmy 98 degrees with 80% humidity. And otherwise people will reference this podcast and say, you told us to come, but the weather was not great. So
you said it, not me.
Well, another great spot, I guess, on that note is we have this great members only portal that a lot of what you talked about is a great point of entry for folks to go to VGM.com, log into the members only portal and, review some of that content that you covered today, but then just to reach out and have that conversation. I think, oftentimes we are just so unsure, as consumers that we just avoid it and we keep pushing it off. But just to have the conversation and explore the opportunities is definitely, I think, what we want to come out of this, this conversation that we've had today for anybody who's listened in. So Kyle, I very much appreciate you taking some time with me to not discuss AI and talk about some great opportunities for, our VGM members and hopefully prospective ones in the future that do listen to this. But thank you for joining Industry Matters. Appreciate you.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks, Shelby.
Thanks, Kyle.